Our class of late junior Alpine kids here to start off our morning. One placing over two for the advantage that we see in general appearance. Starts in that front end assembly. She has more natural extension to that brisket, more width in that front end assembly as well. She's walking around the ring with a tighter point of elbow. And feet and legs, she's a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks, tracking straighter on that rear leg as I watch her walk away from me than what we see in the doe in two. In body capacity, she's picking up the advantage, being wider and deeper in that chest floor, with more increasing depth back into the rear barrel compared to the doe here in two. Two then is placing over three. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. She's a doe that's longer in that rear rib. She's a little flatter boned as well. You combine that with the advantage she has in the area of general appearance and the strength of that top line being longer in the loin and longer in the rump from hips to pins than the doe that we see here in two. Our second place doe, really do appreciate the extension of brisket that she shows, and she should be commended for that.
In our Alpine Lake Junior Kid class, first place goes to entry 3, Moran Freedoms Paris, exhibited by Randy Adamson, Milton, Wisconsin. Second place to entry 2, Gilmore Acres Revival Trinity, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. And third place to entry 1, Gilmore Acres Ranger Tessa, exhibited by Lynn Wolf.
We move into our Nubian late junior kid class. Starting off with the doe, I felt pretty easily led herself to the top of this class. She excels the doe in two in the strength of general appearance that she's showing, specifically in the area of the top line. She's longer through that loin. She's a little more correctly level through the area of the china wall on the move than what we see in two. You combine that with the advantage she has in body capacity, being deeper at that point of elbow with more length back into that rear barrel is enough to carry her over two. Two then is placing over three in her turn for the advantage that she has. First of all, in dairy strength, she's leaner about the neck. She's more open about that rear rib. You combine that with her advantage as well in general appearance as it relates to levelness in that lump structure from hips to pins, carries her over the doe in three. Three then is placing over furthest for her primary advantage in that front end assembly. We see more natural extension of that brisket while on the move than what we see in four. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of the rump being more correctly level from thurl to thurl than what we see in four. In body capacity, she's once again picking up the advantage, being deeper back into the rear barrel than our fourth place doe. Four then is placing over five. This is for her primary advantage in the area of general appearance. You get these two does walking away from you. You see a doe in four that has more width between the hocks, more width and height up into the escutcheon than what we see in five. Five then is placing over six, a close placing here, but we're picking up the advantage in Darius Stung. She's a flatter boned individual, a little more open about that rear rib. She's also longer in that rear rib than what we see in six. Six then is placing over seven for her primary advantage in the area of general appearance. As it relates to the strength of that rump structure, she's more correctly level while on the move from hips to pins. She has more correct angulation in the rear legs as well than what we see in the seventh place kid. Our seventh place kid, really do appreciate the abstainingness that she shows in the withers, and she should be commended for that.
In our Nubian late junior kid class, first place goes to entry one, Hohenbu Epic Rosette Romina, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bell Fountain, Ohio. Second place to entry three, KECMR Thaxter Marin, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. Third place to entry five, Bagley's Troubled Acre Forbidden, exhibited by Lisa Bagley, Martinsville, Ohio. Fourth place to entry eight, Kiwanis Kids Ginger Snap, exhibited by Lisa Sneasel, Rochester, Indiana. Fifth place to entry six, Baisley's Troubled Acre Naughty, exhibited by Lisa Bagley. Sixth place to entry two, KECMR Thaxter Marta, exhibited by Rob Smith. And seventh place to entry four, Adlo Cyclone Mimosa, exhibited by Lisa Light. Chasney Keller, we need your Alpine early junior kid in the ring, please. Chasney Keller.
Our April Alpine kids are coming in line, starting 1 over 2 for the advantage that we see first of all in dairy strength. She's a doe that's a longer bone pattern. She's longer in that rear rib as well. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of general appearance as it relates to the strength of that front end assembly. She's tracking around the wing tighter at the point of elbow today than what we see in 2, as well as being a doe that shows just a little more extension to that brisket. 2 and 3, this is a very close placing here. Some trade-offs between these two does. I really appreciate the long dairy frame on this third place doe, but we're picking up such an advantage in general appearance on this second place doe. As it relates to the strength in that rump structure, she's a doe that's more correctly level in the rump from hips to pins while on the move. In feet and legs, she's a doe that shows us a little more correctness in that rear leg set. As I watch her walk away from me, she's a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks, tracking straighter on that rear leg today than what we see in the doe in 2. 3. 3 then placing over forward, her turn for the advantage that she now has in the area of general appearance and the strength of that back. As they're walking around the ring, we see a doe in 3 that's more correctly level through the area of the chine than what we see in 4. You combine that with the advantage she has in the area of body capacity, being deeper at that point of elbow with more increasing depth, as well as more increasing length back into the barrel than what we see in 4. 4 and 5 is another really close placing, but once again, we're picking up the advantage in the strength of feet and legs on this fourth place doe. As it relates to the strength of the rear pasterns, being shorter and stronger, as well as in the rear leg department, being a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks as she walks away from me than what we see in 5. You combine that with the advantage she has in dairy strength. She's smoother blending from the neck into the withers, and she's sharper in those withers today than what we see in the doe in 5. 5 then placing over 6. That's for her advantage in general appearance. She's more abstaining into the withers. She's more correctly level through the rump from hips to pins while on the move. You combine that with the advantage she now has in dairy strength as it relates to being a longer, more angular bone style doe than our 6th place doe. 6 then placing over 7. This is once again for the advantage that we see in feet and legs. She's a doe that's shorter and stronger in that rear pastern. She has more correct angulation to that rear leg today than what we see in the doe in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage in body capacity. She's wider in that chest floor. She's deeper back into that rear barrel. She's more red shaped when viewed from the side compared to the doe in 7. 7 then placing over 8. Close placing here, but we're picking up the advantage in general appearance and the strength of feet and legs. She's a doe that has more correct set to that rear leg when viewed from the side, as well as in that front end assembly. She has forelegs placed more properly beneath the withers than what we see in 8. 8 then placing over 9 is for her primary advantage in the area of general appearance. She just has more length through that loin as well as the rump from hips to pins. You combine that with the advantage she has in dairy strength, being a stronger boned individual than our 9th place doe. Our 9th place doe, really do appreciate the angulation to the rear legs on this doe, and she should be commended for that.
In our Alpine Early Junior Kid class, first place goes to entry 13, Moran Sea of Faith, exhibited by Randy Adamson, Milton, Wisconsin. Second place to entry 6, Hoosier Homestead PGMM Rocks, exhibited by Meredith Lund, Rockville, Indiana. Third place to entry 7, Gilmore Acres Ranger Tilly, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. Fourth place to entry 9, Pleasant Grove MM Lululemon, Lululemon, exhibited by Hannah Knight, Franklin, Indiana. Fifth place to entry 14, Beck Farms Ammo Lady of Luxury, exhibited by Sarah Beck, Seymour, Indiana. Sixth place to entry 10, Hoosier Homestead KKA Marger, exhibited by Melina Williams, Lake Village, Indiana. Seventh place to entry 8, Hoosier Homestead KKA Magic, exhibited by Meredith Lund. Eighth place to entry 12, AM Rose RC Timber, exhibited by Morgan Rose, Farina, Illinois. Ninth place to entry 5, AM Rose Wendy Twister Sargent, exhibited by Adeline Rose, Farina, Illinois. And 10th place to entry 4, Pemberley Pine Malibu, exhibited by Chasney Keller, Walkerton, Indiana.
Move on to our newbie and April kids. Starting off 1/2 for the advantage that we see in the area of dairy strength. This is doe that's longer and leaner about the neck. She's longer in that rear rib. She's more angular and flat boned as well. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of front end assembly. We're just seeing a little more correct placement of those forelegs beneath the withers. It's a little more natural placement of those forelegs beneath the withers. And then in the rear leg department, just a little more correct set to that rear leg when viewed from the side. 2 and 3 is a much closer placing here. Our second place kid does have the advantage, first of all, in body capacity, being deeper at that point of elbow. She has more increasing depth back into the rear barrel. Then you combine that with the advantage she also holds in the area of general appearance and the strength of that top line. She has less tendency to break in the chine wall on the move, as well as being a doe that's more correctly level on the move in the rump from hips to pins than what we see in the doe in 3. 3 then is placing over 4 in her turn. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. She's leaner about the neck. She's a longer bone pattern doe. She's also more outcurving the thigh when viewed from behind compared to the doe in 4. You combine that with the advantage that she now has in the area of general appearance, specifically in that rear leg department, just being more wider. She has more width, more height in the escutcheon today than what we see in 4. 4 then is placing over 5. This is for her primary advantage in that body capacity category, just showing us so much more width of that chest floor, more depth back into the rear barrel. You combine that with the advantage she has in terms of dairy strength, just being a stronger boned individual, as well as being more red shaped when viewed from the side compared to the doe here in 5. Our 5th place doe over 6th place doe, showing us the advantage today in the area of general appearance. As it relates to the strength of that top line, we're seeing more natural levelness in that rump from thurl to thurl. You combine that with the advantage she also has in the area of that front end assembly. She has more natural extension to that brisket today than what we see in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. She's more outcurving of thigh when viewed from behind. She's a doe that's longer and leaner about that neck as well. 7th place doe over 8th place doe. For the advantage that she has in the area of general appearance and the strength of that top line. As you get these two does out on the move, we see a doe in 7 that's longer through the loin. She's more correctly level in the rump from hips to pins than what we see in 8. 8th place doe, really do appreciate the abstaininess into the withers that she shows, and she should be commended for that.
In our newbie and early junior kid class, first place goes to entry 15, Hohenboo UNKD Keep Calm, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bellefontaine, Ohio. Second place to entry 17, Bagley's Troubled Acres Hot and Dandy, exhibited by Lisa Begley, Martinsville, Ohio. Third place to entry 13, Hohenboo Little Rosalind Rosita, exhibited by Holly Broker. Fourth place to entry 19, J.H. Farms St. Pepper White Sands, exhibited by Diana Huber, West Harrison, Indiana. Fifth place to entry 16, KECMR Thaxter Charlie, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. Sixth place to entry 11, Bagley's Troubled Acres Fascinate, exhibited by Lisa Bagley. Seventh place to entry 18, Forever's Ranch Cricket, exhibited by Holly Lawson, Niles, Michigan. And eighth place to entry 14, Chaos Kids Kahlua, exhibited by Kennedy Gold, Lafayette, Indiana.
Our class of Alpine March kids coming in a line, starting off the class with a doe that really caught my eye from the beginning. She has the advantage over the doe in 2 in dairy strength, being a flatter bone, more angular doe. She may not be as deep, but she's also more correct in general appearance as it relates to the strength of feet and legs. She tracks out with more correct angulation to that rear leg, tracking with more height and width up into the escutcheon as well than what we see in 2. 2 then is placing over 3. This is for her primary advantage once again in that general appearance category. She's a doe that's more correctly right and level through that lump structure today than what we see in 3. She additionally will have the advantage in the area of feet and legs. Once again, just showing me more correct angulation in that rear leg today when she comes to rest than what we see in our 3rd place doe. In body capacity, she's a doe showing us more width and depth of the chest floor and depth back into the rear barrel. 3 then is placing over 4 in her turn for the advantage that she now has in the area of general appearance. In the front end assembly, she's tracking around the wing tighter at the point of elbow than what we've seen 4. She additionally has the advantage in rear leg set. As I get behind her, she tracks out straighter in that rear leg with more width between the hocks than what we see in this 4th place doe. 4 then placing over 5. This is for her primary advantage in dairy string. She's a doe that's longer in that rear rib, more angular throughout than what we see in our 5th place doe. Combine that with the advantage she has in the area of the rump structure being more correctly level from hips to pins while on the move than what we see in 5. 5 then placing over 6 for her primary advantage in feet and legs. She's shorter and stronger in that rear pastern. She's tracking with more ease of motion about that rear leg today than what we see in our 6th place doe. You combine that with the advantage she has in the area of the front end assembly, having more natural extension of brisket and more correctly placed forelegs beneath the withers than what we see in the doe in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage in the area of dairy string. She's more outcurving of thigh when viewed from behind. She's longer about that neck as well than what we see in our 7th place doe. 7 then placing over 8 for her primary advantage in general appearance. It's in the strength of that rump structure, being more correctly level from hips to pins while on the move, as well as being a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks than what we see in our 8th place doe. 8th place doe is a doe that I moved up here at the end. She's a really balanced individual. We're seeing a little more red-shaped ness. That's not the correct word for that, but she's more veggie when viewed from the side than some of the does we see behind her, as well as being a doe that shows a little more correctness in terms of depth to rear barrel than some of the does behind her today.
In our Alpine Intermediate Kid class, first place goes to entry 32, M&G Farms Material Girl, exhibited by Hannah Knight, Franklin, Indiana. Second place to entry 24, Hohenboo Pasta Parmesan, exhibited by Drew Broker, Bellefountain, Ohio. Third place to entry 33, M&G Farms Revlon, exhibited by Hannah Knight. Fourth place to entry 31, Kickapoo Valley Holy Tempest, exhibited by Hannah Neeson, Waynesville, Illinois. Fifth place to entry 29, Gilmore Acres Revival Tia, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. Sixth place to entry 21, Hohenboo Pesto Panoodle, exhibited by Drew Broker. Seventh place to entry 27, Karst Creek Apple Spice, exhibited by Debbie Haberlin, Georgetown, Indiana. Eighth place to entry 28, Gilmore Acres Range Tacoma, exhibited by Lynn Wolf. Ninth place to entry 34, Love's Blue Ridge Port Daydream, exhibited by Brenda Leitner, Pittsboro, Indiana. And 10th place to entry 20, Karst Creek Angel on Pangea, exhibited by Debbie Haberlin.
our class of Nubian March kids here, starting off with a lot of, of differences between these kids, but also a lot of trade-offs between these kids. So it's really a matter of getting the kid with the most correct general appearance near the top of the line, while we have to work through some stylistic differences here. Our first place kid does have that advantage over the doe and two in the area of the strength of feet and legs. She's shorter and stronger in that front passer, and she's tighter in that front toe. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of dairy strength, being a longer bone pattern doe, and that's enough to carry her over the doe and two. She will have to grant to the incredible top line on the second place doe. This is for the advantage in general appearance and the correctness over that top line that carries 2 over 3, specifically in the area that try and be more correctly level while on the move than what we see in our third place doe. You combine that with the advantage she has in feet and legs as it relates to being a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks, straighter in that rear leg as she's walking away from me than what we see in 3. In body capacity, she's a doe that shows us more increasing depth back into the rear barrel than our third place doe. 3 then placing over 4. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. This is a longer bone pattern doe. She's longer about that neck. You combine that with the advantage that she now has in the area of strength of general appearance, being a doe that's more correctly level in the rump from hips to pins while on the move than what we see in 4. 4 then is placing over 5. This for her primary advantage. First of all, in general appearance and the strength of feet and legs. She's a doe that shows more proper angulation to that rear leg today than what we see in 5. You combine that with the advantage she also holds in the area of the top line. She's wider in the loin as well as wider in the rump from thurl to thurl than what we see in 5. 5 then is placing over 6. This for her primary advantage in general appearance. Once again, just that advantage in the area of the rump being more correctly level while on the move from hips to pins than what we see in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage in the area of feet and legs. She's a doe that tracks out more truly forward on that front leg. She's tracking out with more width between the hocks, more width and height up into the escutcheon than the doe we see in 7. 7 then placing over 8, just seeing that correctness of the front end assembly. She has more extension to that brisket. She has forelegs placed more properly beneath the withers. You combine that with the advantage she has in dairy strength, being a more angular style doe than what we see in 8. We get to the 8th place doe, and we're just seeing that combination of correctness of length of body, levelness over that top line, a little bit of an advantage in the strength of bone throughout as well compared to some of the does behind her today.
In our Nubian Intermediate Kid class, first place goes to entry 32, Begley's Troubled Acre Mimic, exhibited by Lisa Begley, Martinsville, Ohio. Second place to entry 30, J.H. Farms St. Pepper's Dunes, exhibited by Diana Hubbard, West Harrison, Indiana. Third place to entry 31, Begley's Troubled Acre Imitate, exhibited by Lisa Begley. Fourth place to entry 26, Hohenboo CM Fortune and Fame, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bellefountain, Ohio. Fifth place to entry 35, KECMR Thaxter Raven, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. Sixth place to entry 24, J&M Hadaway MX Lady Gwen, exhibited by Diana Hubbard, West Harrison, Indiana. Seventh place to entry 21, Hohenboo AB Evasive Evita, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bellefountain, Ohio. Eighth place to entry 25, Hohenboo Prim and Proper, also exhibited by Holly Broker. Ninth place to entry 23, Hohenboo Diastaniza, exhibited by Holly Broker. And 10th place to entry 22, Hohenboo Diasti Charlot, also exhibited by Holly Broker.
Our class of Alpine senior kids here, starting with a real close placing at the head of the line, while our first place kid will grant to the length of body on this second place kid. She does have the advantage in general appearance as it relates to the strength of feet and legs. She's a doe that tracks more truly forward on that front leg. She's tracking out with more width between the hocks, more width and height up into the escutcheon. Then we look at body capacity, and this is a doe that's wider in that chest floor and fuller at that point of elbow today than what we see in 2. Back in that general appearance category, she also has the advantage in that front end assembly with more natural extension to that brisket as well compared to the doe in 2. 2 then is placing over 3 for that advantage in dairy strength. She just has that advantage being a flatter boned individual. She's longer in that rear rib. She's just a longer bone pattern doe as well. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of back under general appearance, being more correctly level while on the move through the chine area than what we see in our doe in 3. 3 then placing over 4, this is for her primary advantage in that general appearance category, specifically in the feet and legs department. As you watch these two does walk away from you, she's a doe that tracks out straighter in that rear leg today than what we see in the doe in 4. You combine that with her advantage now in terms of dairy strength, being a flatter boned individual, a little more angular throughout as well in her own right than what we see in our 4th place doe. 4 then is placing over 5, while she will grant to the correctness of rear leg set on this 5th place doe. She does have the advantage when it comes to the other areas of general appearance, specifically in the length over the top line, the length in the loin, the length in the rump from hips to pins, and then she combines that with the advantage she has in body capacity, being deeper at that point of elbow with more length and depth back into the rear barrel compared to the doe in 5. 5 then is placing over 6 in her turn for the advantage she now has in general appearance. As it relates to the strength in that loin area, less tendency to roach in the loin while on the move than what we see in 6. You combine that with the advantage she has in feet and legs. I'm just showing some more proper set to that rear leg while on the move than what we see in our 6th place doe. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. She's leaner about the neck. She's a little cleaner throughout as well. You combine that with the advantage she has in general appearance and the strength of that front end assembly. She just has forelegs placed more properly beneath the withers. A little tighter at the point of elbow today than what we see in the doe in 7. 7 then placing over 8. This is for her primary advantage in body capacity. She's wider and deeper in that chest floor. She's deeper back into that rear barrel. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in terms of dairy strength, being a longer bone pattern doe. She's longer in that rear rib as well compared to the doe in 8. 8th place doe, placing over the remainder of this class just for that combination of correctness of rump structure, the levelness from hips to pins, combining that with the correctness of feet and legs that this kid shows is enough to carry her into 8th today.
In our Alpine senior kid class, first place goes to entry 46, Moran Resurrection Javelin, exhibited by Randy Adamson, Milton, Wisconsin. Second place to entry 42, Sunrising Chiffon, exhibited by Elena Weaver, Laurelville, Ohio. Third place to entry 44, Pleasant Grove Arch Mabelite, exhibited by Stephanie Neeson, Waynesville, Illinois. Fourth place to entry 45, PJ Bailey's Sabrina, exhibited by Hannah Knight, Franklin, Indiana. Fifth place to entry 47, Pemberley Pine Tab Serenade, exhibited by Chasney Keller, Walkerton, Indiana. Sixth place to entry 35, Gilmore Acres Ranger Twyla, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. Seventh place to entry 39, Hoosier Homestead Nirvana, exhibited by Meredith Lund, Rockville, Indiana. Eighth place to entry 62, Love's Blue Ridge Port Dazzlin, exhibited by Brenda Leitner, Pittsboro, Indiana. Ninth place to entry 40, Shady Lawn Rustic Iron, exhibited by Debbie Haberlin, Georgetown, Indiana. And 10th place to entry 41, Hoosier Homestead Vicks Candy, exhibited by Meredith Lund, Rockville, Indiana.
We moved into our Nubian senior kid class. Once again, some trade-offs between these two does at the head of the line. Our first place doe does have the advantage, however, in dairy strength. She's leaner about the neck. She's more open about that rear rib. She's more correctly pliable about the skin today as well than what we see in two. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of general appearance and the strength of feet and legs. She's a doe that tracks out with more width between those forelegs today than what we see in the doe in two. She'll have to grant to the incredible levelness through the chine area on the second place doe, and it is that advantage in the back region that carries 2/3. She's more correctly level through the chine and loin wall on the move, as well as the rump from hips to pins. You combine that with her advantage in terms of body capacity, being wider and deeper in that chest floor and deeper back into the rear barrel is enough to carry her over the more dairy doe here in three. Three then placing over four for that dairy strength advantage. She's a little leaner about the neck. She's more open once again about that rear rib. She's more angular throughout as well compared to the doe here in four. You combine that with her advantage now in terms of strength of general appearance and the correctness of of feet and legs, just showing us a little more correct set to this rear leg when viewed from the side compared to the doe in four. Four then placing over five, another really close placing here. Fourth place kid does have the advantage when it comes to the body capacity category, just showing us more depth at that point of elbow, more increasing depth back into the rear barrel. Then you combine that with her advantage in that front end assembly. She has more natural extension to that brisket. Forelegs are placed more naturally beneath the withers than what we see in five. Five then placing over six. It's for her primary advantage. In terms of dairy strength, she's just a flatter boned individual, a little more red shaped when viewed from the side. You combine that with the advantage she now holds in the area of general appearance and the strength of the feet and legs. She's stronger in all four pasterns today than the doe in six. Six then placing over seven. This is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. She's longer and leaner about the neck. She's more out curving of thigh compared to the doe in seven. You combine that with her advantage in strength of general appearance and levelness over that top line, specifically in the area of the chine, is enough to carry her over what I believe is seven. Seven then placing over eight. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance. As it relates to the strength of feet and legs, just once again showing some more correct angulation to that rear leg today, both at rest and while on the move than what we see in the doe in eight. Eight then placing over the remainder of the class, just seeing a little more correctness in terms of abstainingness into the withers, correctness of that front end assembly, combined with the body capacity to go with the age and stage of growth that these kids should be in.
In our Nubian senior kid class, first place goes to entry 53, J.H. Farms Oh Darling Zion, exhibited by Diana Hubbard, West Harrison, Indiana. Second place to entry 58, KCMR Charles Winter, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. Third place to entry 44, Hohenboo the Feather Freya, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bellefountain, Ohio. Fourth place to entry 38, Begley's Troubled Acre Hearsay, exhibited by Lisa Begley, Martinsville, Ohio. Fifth place to entry 57, KECMR Charlie's Renly, exhibited by Rob Smith. Sixth place to entry 54, JH Farms Peta's Smoky, exhibited by Diana Hubbard. Seventh place to entry 50, Mila's TH Work of Art, exhibited by Mila Berry, Rawson, Ohio. Eighth place to entry 56, Forever's Ranch Nora, exhibited by Holly Lawson, Niles, Michigan. Ninth place to entry 48, Bedell Farms Stormy, exhibited by Madeline Bedell, Greensburg, Indiana. And 10th place to entry 49, Mila's Epic Lily, exhibited by Mila Berry.
Our class of Alpine Junior dry yearlings coming in the line, starting off 1/2 for the advantage that we see first of all in dairy strength. This is doe that's a little sharper in those withers, a little more angular throughout, as well as being more out curving of thigh when viewed from behind. You combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of general appearance and the strength of feet and legs, once again being a doe that tracks more truly forward on that front leg, tracking with more width and height up into the escutcheon compared to the doe in 2. Second place doe, do appreciate how tightly she walks with that point of elbow against the body wall today, and she should be commended for that.
In our Alpine Dry Junior Yearling class, first place goes to entry 49, Gilmore Acres Ranger Smooch, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. Second place to entry 48, Pangea Indomitable Spirit, exhibited by Harriet Wilkins, Corydon, Indiana. Emily Cooper, we need your Nubian Junior Yearlings, please. Emily Cooper. Test 1 2 test. Test test.
Our class of Nubian junior yearlings. Starting off the class with a doe, I felt pretty easily led herself to the top of this class. She didn't really want to behave out here, but when she did, we just saw such an advantage over this doe in 2 in the area of general appearance and strength over that top line. She's more level in the rump from hips to pins while on the move. She's more correctly set in that rear leg today as well. You combine that with her advantage in dairy strength, being more open about that rear rib, a flatter boned individual. It's more than enough to carry her over the doe in 2. 2 then is placing over 3. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance. Just seeing a doe with more extension to that brisket. Forelegs are placed a little more properly beneath the withers today than what we see in 3. You combine that with her advantage in terms of strength of body capacity, just showing us more depth at that point of elbow today than what we see in 3. She will have to grant to the incredible texture of skin on this third place stone. It is that advantage in dairy strength, that length about the neck, the openness of ribbing, and the correctness of texture of skin that carries 3 over 4. You combine that with her advantage now in the area of body capacity, you're showing us more increasing depth back into the rear barrel, carries her over the doe in 4. 4 then placing over 5. This is for her advantage in general appearance and the strength over that top line. She's more correctly level through the tri and loin area while on the move than what we see in 5. You combine that with her advantage in dairy strength, once again just showing us more openness of ribbing and flatness of bone than what we see in this doe in 5. 5 then placing over 6. It's for her primary advantage in general appearance. As it relates to the strength of that front end assembly, she has more natural extensions to that brisket. She's tracked around the ring a little tighter at the point of elbow today. And then in feet and legs, she's a doe that shows more width and height up into the escutcheon than our doe in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is a doe that just shows us the advantage in general appearance and the strength of feet and legs. She's a little straighter on that foreleg when viewed from the side. She has rear legs placed more properly beneath the rump structure today than what we see in 7. 7 then placing over 8. This is doe I moved up here at the end. She just walks out so much better than what she stands, and so you have to get her on the move to really appreciate the correctness of general appearance she has. She does, however, also have the advantage in the area of dairy strength. She's a longer bone pattern doe. She's more open about that rear rib as well compared to the doe here in 8. 8 then placing over 9. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance and levelness in that rump structure while on the move. Be more level from hips to pins. She additionally has a little more properly set rear leg today than what we see in the doe in 9. 9 then placing over 10, just for the advantage that she has now in terms of length over that top line, length through the loin, as well as the rump from hips to pins, as well as being a doe that shows a little more width in that chest floor and body capacity today than the doe in 10. Our 10th place doe is the youngest doe out here. Really appreciate the width between the hocks that she tracks out with, and she should be commended for that.
In our Nubian Dry Junior Yearling class, first place goes to entry 63, J.H. Farms Oysters Ocean, exhibited by Diana Hubbard, West Harrison, Indiana. Second place to entry 66, KECMR Explorer Faye, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. Third place to entry 67, Bagley's Troubled Acre Venus, exhibited by Lisa Bagley, Martinsville, Ohio. Fourth place to entry 61, Legacy of Galway Farm Josie, exhibited by Emily Cooper, LaRue, Ohio. Fifth place to entry 69, KECMR Tomas Willow, exhibited by Rob Smith. Sixth place to entry 62, Kiwanis Kids O Vivian, exhibited by Lisa Senazel, Rochester, Indiana. Seventh place to entry 68, Bagley's Troubled Acre Hot Rum, exhibited by Lisa Bagley. Eighth place to entry 64, Tadero Farm Mocha Latte, exhibited by Aubrey Motika, Decatur, Michigan. Ninth place to entry 65, Bagley's Troubled Acres Sayre, exhibited by Lisa Light, Cox's Creek, Kentucky. And 10th place to entry 60, Legacy of Galway Farm Do-Si Do, exhibited by Emily Cooper. Test, test, 1, 2. Test, 1, 2. Test, test. Test 1, 2.
An absolutely beautiful class of Alpine Dry Yearling, starting 1/2 for the advantage that we see, first of all, in that dairy strength category. She's a doe that's more open about that rear rib, a little more pliable of skin today as well. You combine that with her advantage in the area of general appearance, just being longer through that loin area, longer in the rump from hips to pins, is enough to carry her over 2. 2 then is placing over 3. This is for her primary advantage in the area of general appearance in that front end assembly. She has more natural extension to that brisket. She has more width in that front end. You combine that with her advantage as well in the area of body capacity, being deeper at the point of elbow with more increasing depth back into the rear barrel. It's enough to carry her over the more dairy doe here in 3. 3 then is placing over 4 for that advantage in dairy strength. You get your hands on these two does. Just see a doe in 3 that's more open about that rear rib. She's a little flatter boned, as well as having the advantage in general appearance and the strength of feet and legs, just showing us more height and width up into the escutcheon today than what we see in 4. 4 then is placing over 5. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance. It's in that rump structure. She's tracked around the ring. She has more correct levelness from hips to pins than what we see in 5. You combine that with a doe that tracks out with more width between the hocks. That's enough to carry her over the doe here in 5. 5 then is placing over 6. This is for her large advantage in dairy strength. She's longer and leaner about that neck. She's a longer bone pattern doe. She's more open about that rear rib as well. You combine that with her advantage in general appearance in that front end assembly. She has more natural extension to that brisket today than the doe in 6. 6 inches placing over 7. This is for her advantage in feet and legs. She's a doe that tracks more truly forward on that front leg. She's a doe that's tracking straighter on that rear leg when I watch her walk from behind compared to the doe in 7. 7 then placing over 8. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance and the strength over that top line. She's more abstaining to the withers. She's more correctly level in the rump from hips to pins, as well as being a doe that's stronger in those feet and legs, having more proper angulation to that rear leg today compared to the doe in 8. 8 then placing over the remainder of the class. We're just picking up the advantage in strength of pastern on all 4 feet, a little more advantage in terms of dare strength and the openness of ribbing and flatness of bone compared to some of the does behind her.
In our Alpine Dry Senior Yearling class, first place goes to entry 61, Hohenboo RR Pasta Primavera, exhibited by Drew Broker, Bell Fountain, Ohio. Second place to entry 57, M&G Farms Mercedes, exhibited by Hannah Knight, Franklin, Indiana. Third place to entry 58, M&G Farms Maggie, also exhibited by Hannah Knight. Fourth place to entry 55, Beck Farms Val Luscious Lady, exhibited by Sarah Beck, Seymour, Indiana. Fifth place to entry 52, Gilmore Acres Revival Serenity, exhibited by Lynn Wolf, Mason, Illinois. Sixth place to entry 53, Moran Ladies Lydia, exhibited by Randy Adamson, Milton, Wisconsin. Seventh place to entry 66, Kelly Farms Tanya, exhibited by Ellery Morgan, Royal Center, Indiana. Eighth place to entry 65, Kickapoo Valley Sensational, exhibited by Stephanie Neeson, Waynesville, Illinois. Ninth place to entry 63, Love's Brew Ridge Cow Wren, exhibited by Brenda Leitner, Pittsboro, Indiana. And 10th place to entry 67, A.M. Rose Flossie, exhibited by Adeline Rose, Farina, Illinois. Want to take just a minute this morning to recognize our judge for this weekend's Dairy Goat Show. Our judge is Mr. Joseph Larson. Joseph has been judging dairy goats for 12 years and has been an ADGA licensed judge for 10 years. One highlight of his judging career is having the privilege of judging the showmanship at the 2023 ADGA National Show in Oregon. Joseph and his family raise Alpines, Toggenburgs, and Oberhausley dairy goats under the herd name Harmony in Nunn, Colorado. They show regionally and nationally and have been blessed with 3 national champions, 3 reserve national champions, and a junior national champion, including the 2024 ADGA National Champion Alpine and 2025 recorded grade junior national champion. Outside of goats, Joseph is a software engineer at Motorola Solutions. Joseph says he is very excited to be judging the NAILE, and we are certainly very excited to have him with us this weekend. So let's give him a big round of applause.
Really large class of Nubian dry yearlings here. Starting off 1/2 for the advantage that we see in the area of general appearance, specifically in the area over that top line. She's more level through the chine area while on the move, and the rump she's flatter from hips to pins. You combine that with her advantage in dairy strength, being more open about that rear rib. She's a flatter boned individual as well compared to the doe in 2. 2 then is placing over 3 in her turn for the advantage she has in general appearance. It's in the feet and legs. We see a doe that's more naturally correctly set about that rear leg today, tracking out with a little more height and width up into the escutcheon than what we see in 3. You combine that with the advantage she has in body capacity. She's longer into that rear barrel than what we see in our 3rd place doe. 3 then placing over 4. This is for her primary advantage in body capacity. She's wider in that chest floor. She's deeper back into that rear barrel. She'll combine that with the advantage she also holds today in the area of general appearance. As it relates to that front end assembly, she has more extension to that brisket. She's a little smoother blending from that brisket into the pointer shoulder today compared to the doe in 4. 4 then placing over 5. This is for her primary advantage in general appearance and that strength over the top line. She's more correctly level through the chine and loin area than what we see in the doe in 5. She combines that with the advantage in feet and legs, just being a little straighter in that foreleg when viewed from the side, a little stronger on that rear pastern today than what we see in our 5th place doe. 5 then placing over 6 is for her primary advantage in dairy strength. Get your hands on these 2 does. You see a doe in 5 that's just so much more pliable about the skin, a little more angular about that rear rib. You combine that with her advantage as well in the area in the area of general appearance. Once again, in that feet and leg department, we've just seen a doe that tracks out with a little more correct angulation to that rear leg today than what we see in 6. 6 then placing over 7. This is for her primary advantage and the strength of feet and legs. Once again, being straighter in that foreleg when viewed from the side, stronger in that front pastern. Combine that with her advantage and body capacity, being deeper at the point of elbow with more depth back into the rear barrel is enough to carry her over the doe in 7. 7 then placing over 8 is for her advantage in general appearance. She has more natural extension to that brisket today than the doe we see in 7. You combine that with the advantage she has in terms of being higher and wider up into the escutcheon is enough to carry her over the doe here in 8. 8 then placing over the remainder of the class. We just see a doe a little more correctness in terms of strength of feet and legs all the way throughout. See a doe that's a little more correct in terms of body capacity, in terms of width throughout compared to her size and scale. And for those reasons, she places over the remainder of the class.
In our Nubian Dry Senior Yearling class, 1st place goes to entry 89, J.H. Farm Brazil Nuts Bolt, exhibited by Diana Hubbard, West Harrison, Indiana. 2nd place to entry 85, Hohenboo Downtown Joyride, exhibited by Holly Broker, Bell Fountain, Ohio. 3rd place to entry 81, KECMR Candyman's Toffee, exhibited by Rob Smith, St. Paul, Indiana. 4th place to entry 70, ML Legacy ACL Vista Limits, exhibited by Woods River Farm, Avon, Indiana. 5th place to entry 72, Bagley's Troubled Acre Persona, exhibited by Lisa Bagley, Martinsville, Ohio. 6th place to entry 87, Hohenboo Epic Feather Funfetti, exhibited by Holly Broker. 7th place to entry 73, Hohenboo TM Anthem Independence, also exhibited by Holly Broker. 8th place to entry 76, Kiwanis Kids Aussie, exhibited by Lisa Snazel, Rochester, Indiana. And 9th place to entry 77, J.H. Farms Bunnies Malibu, exhibited by Diana Hubbard. And 10th place to entry 79, Bagley's Troubled Acres Saucy, exhibited by Lisa Bagley.
A beautiful lineup here to select our junior champion Alpine. We start here at the back line, just a really powerful individual for her age. Really got to appreciate the width and depth of this individual. I believe this is a May kid. Really appreciate the depth, the chest floor, the depth back into the rear barrel, just the width and the general appearance as well. We move up at age category. I believe this is an April kid now. Just a really dairy individual. Really appreciate that long, lean neck, the openness to ribbing and flatness of bone throughout that she shows. A really eye-catching March kid here. I love the set to the rear legs on this stow with the angulation of hock, the width and height that she tracks with up into the escutcheon, the width between the hocks as well. A senior kid directly in front of her. I believe this is a February kid, just a very upstanding individual. Really appreciate the levelness through the chine and loin area on her, as well as the length in the rump from hips to pins. A junior dry yearling directly in front of her, just a really elegant individual. Once again, love the long lean neck that she shows, the sharpness in the withers, the flatness of bone, the angularity throughout. And then a senior dry yearling at the head of the line. Just a beautiful doe in terms of general appearance and the levelness of the top line, the width through the loin, the width in the rump from thurl to thurl, combined with an extremely strong set of feet and legs. It's really easy for me to go to that dry yearling at the head of the line for our junior champion. She has that advantage over the does behind her in the areas of general appearance, that uniform length over the top line, the correctness of set to the rear legs, the extreme width between the hocks and height up into the escutcheon. She's going to be our junior champion. We bring in our second place from that class. Just once again, a really correct doe in general appearance. Beautiful upstainedness into the withers, and extremely correct front end on this doe with that extension of brisket, the tightness at the point of elbow. And she fits really nicely out here for our competition for reserve. Really feel like the closest competitors for reserve is that second place dry yearling and our first place March kid, third from the back of the line. And today, for the advantage that she has in that general appearance category, that extension of brisket, just a little more properly placed forelegs beneath the withers, I'm going to the second place dry yearling. She'll be our reserve junior champion.
And our junior champion Alpine was entry 61, a dry senior yearling, Hohenbu RR Pasta Primavera, exhibited by Drew Broker. Our reserve junior champion Alpine was the second place dry senior yearling, M&G Farms Mercedes, exhibited by Hannah Knight. Congratulations.
Another really strong lineup for our selection of junior Nubian champion. Once again, starting here at the back line, just a really stylish individual. Really appreciate the levelness over the top line on this doe, the levelness through the chine and loin area, as well as being a doe that has such an extremely correct set of rear legs on her. We move up into our April kid class. Once again, just a really abstaining individual, but I really appreciate the dairy strength on this doe with that long lean neck, the openness of ribbing, the flatness of bone that she shows. Directly in front of her is our March Kid class winner. Just an extremely correct front end on this doe. Really appreciate the extension of brisket, the smoothness of blending about that shoulder assembly, the tightness at the point of elbow as well. She's another doe that really is strong in body capacity with that depth of rear barrel on her. In front of her is our senior kid class winner. Just a really correct doe in terms of general appearance. Beautiful set of feet and legs on this doe. I love watching her walk away from me with that high ride escutcheon, the width that she tracks out between the hocks. In front of her is a really dairy junior dry yearling, a doe that doesn't really ever want to walk, but when she does, she's so incredibly level over that top line as well. A doe that such an extremely correct set of feet and legs as well with that beautiful angulation to rear leg. And then a dry yearling at the head of the line, just a really powerful individual. Really appreciate the width and depth in that chest floor, the width of that front end assembly, as well as the width in which she tracks out with between the hocks. For me, the three closest competitors for a champion is that dry yearling at the head of the line, our senior kid class winner, and our junior class winner. And today, for the advantage that she has in terms of strength of dairiness and the flatness of bone throughout, as well as the advantage in general appearance, being more abstaining to the withers, a little tighter at the point of elbow, I'm coming down to the junior kid. She'll be my junior champion. We pull her out of line and look at our second place from that class. Once again, just a really dairy individual. Really appreciate the length of rear rib on her and the flatness of bone throughout. But now not quite seeing the same strength of rear pasterns that we saw in our junior champion. So now looking a little closer between our dry yearling at the head of the line and this senior kid class winner. Now the advantage falls to the individual. It just shows a little more tightness at the point of elbow, a little more width and height up into the escutcheon. And that's a senior kid. She'll be our reserve junior champion.
And our junior champion Nubian is the early junior kid, Hohenbu. Keep Calm, exhibited by Holly Broker. Our reserve junior champion is our senior kid, J.H. Farms, Oh Darling Zion, exhibited by Diana Hubbard. Congratulations.
Our class of Alpine best three junior doers, we're looking for the group that shows the most consistency of good type, and I feel like we pretty easily have that in this group. Third from my right, they have the advantage of the second group, which is the group on my far left, and that consistency of levelness through the rump area from hips to pins, as well as just slight advantage in the dairy strength and the length of bone pound throughout and openness of ribbing throughout. So for those reasons, first place group will place over our group in two. Group in two on my far left, over the group in three on my far right. We're just seeing a little more consistency and set to the rear leg, a little more consistency and freedom of motion about that rear leg in those general appearance categories compared to that group that ends up being my third place group. My group in three over my group in four, which is the group in the middle of the ring. We're just seeing a little more consistency in that general appearance category, just a little more width over the top lines as a group, a little more abstainness into the withers compared to my group in four. Four then placing over the group in five, which is the new far left group, just showing us a little more consistency in dairy strength and that length of bone pound throughout, openness of ribbing and flatness of bone compared to our group in five. Our group in five placing over our group in six, just once again showing us a little more width throughout, a little more width in those front end assemblies, also a little more strength of bone and dairy strength compared to our sixth place group. Sixth place group over our seventh place group. Once again, this is a dairy strength advantage here, just showing us longer bone patterns, stronger bone patterns as a group than what we see in our group here. In seven, our seventh place group, really do appreciate the set to the rear legs on a lot of these individuals, and they should be commended for that. Our class of Nubian best three, once again looking for the group that has the most consistent good type, and I think we find that pretty clearly in our group. Third from my right, they have the advantage of the second place group, which is the group on my far right. In that advantage of set to the rear leg, just showing us as a group a little more consistency in high ride escutcheons, seeing a little more consistency in flatness of bone and openness throughout in that dare strength carrier. So that's enough to carry them over our group into our second place group. For our third place group, which is going to be this group right here in the middle, just seeing the advantage in terms of just being a little longer bodied individuals as a group, just a little more correctness in terms of set to the rear leg, a little more strength to the rear pasterns as a group than what we see in my third place group. Third place group over my fourth place group, we're just seeing a little more correctness in terms of abstainingness into the withers, levelness through the chine area, as well as a little more in terms of the consistency of width and depth throughout compared to the group here in fourth place group over my fifth place group. Just seeing that advantage in dairy strength. As a group, they're a little more open about their rear rib, a little flatter bone, a little more angular throughout compared to five. Five then placing over six, which is this group. We're just seeing a little more consistency in terms of set to that rear leg, a little more width between the hocks, width and height up into the escutcheon compared to our sixth place group. Six then placing over seven, just picking up the advantage in terms of length of body throughout, a little longer through those top lines, a little longer in that rear barrel today than what we see in our seventh place group. Our seventh place group over our eighth place group, just picking up the advantage once again in that set to the rear legs, just showing us more height and width up into the escutcheon as a group, a little more width between the hocks than what we see in our eighth place group. Eighth place group, I do appreciate the sharpness of withers that all three of these does show, and they should be commended for that. Our class of Alpine Git of Sires. There are 6 groups out here. Actually, most of them are represented by 3 dams, which is really impressive as well. I'm going to start with the group on my far left over the group on my far right. They just have that advantage in terms of just being a little more consistent in terms of height and width up into the escutcheon, correctness in terms of width in that rump structure, levelness from thurl to thurl as well. For those reasons, 1 will place over 2. 2 then placing over 3, which is the group directly beside them. Once again, just picking up the advantage in dare strings are showing us a little more length in that bone pattern, a little more flatness of bone as a group, a little more sharpness of withers as well compared to our group in 3. Our group in 3 over our group in 4, which is second from my left, just for the advantage that they show in correctness of feet and legs, just showing us a little more strength of pastern on all 4 feet as a group, a little more strength in terms of set to that rear leg today when viewed from the side compared to the group in what I believe is 4. 4 then placing over 5, which is the group to their right, just showing us a little more correctness of feet and legs, this time in the rear legs, showing us more straightness in that rear leg when viewed from the side, from behind, a little more correct width between the hocks when viewed from behind compared to our group in 5. Group in 5 over our group in 6, just showing us a little more correctness in terms of strength of bone pattern throughout and length of bone pattern throughout compared to the group here in 6. Our 6th place group really do appreciate the angulation to rear legs on these 3 does, and they should be commended for that.
Also, don't forget if you had a champion, a junior champion, that Bob needs to have those pictures. So make sure you go see Bob and have your pictures made.
our class of Nubian junior gate. Once again, a class represented with a lot of groups with 3 different dams. A real close placing here at the head of the line. We're just seeing a little more consistency as a group in terms of strength of general appearance and levelness over that top line, the correctness of those front end assemblies in terms of tightness at the point of elbow compared to the group here in 2. 2 then placing over 3. Once again, just a little bit more in terms of consistency of height and width to that escutcheon area today, as well as just being a little more dairy as a group, just a little longer and leaner about the neck than our 3rd place group. 3 then placing over 4. This is for their primary advantage in that just that width and power that they all show as a group. A lot more width in that front end assembly and body capacity, a lot deeper and wider does than our group in what I believe is 4. 4 then placing over 5. As a group, we're just seeing a little more correctness in terms of set to that rear leg, a little more in terms of height and width to the escutcheon as well compared to our group in 5. 5 then placing over 6. So a little more abstainness as a group into those withers, a little more levelness through that chine area as a group than what we see in 6. 6 then placing over 7. So a little more correctness in terms of set to that rear leg when viewed from the side compared to our group in 7. 7 then placing over 8. Once again, just that advantage in height and width to the escutcheon as a group than what we see in 8. 8 then placing over 9. Just an advantage in terms of maturity. We have a lot older does in this group showing us that width and depth that we assume will come, and they're showing it today compared to this younger group in what I think is 9. 9 then placing over 10, just for the advantage they have in strength of rear pasture and set to that rear leg when viewed from the side over 10. 10 then placing over 11. Once again, just that dairy strength advantage and that long lean neck, the openness to ribbing and flatness of bone compared to this group here in 11. Our 11th place group really do appreciate the extension of brisket that they have as a set.
This concludes our Alpine and Nubian young stock shows this morning. We have a lunch break, and we will start back with milkers promptly at 1 p.m. Also want to announce that the Indiana Dairy Goat producers are meeting at noon out in the lobby. Indiana Dairy Goat producers at noon in the lobby.